Hey guys, what's up? It's Marie with Swipe in the City. Welcome back. Super excited. It is just Michelle and I here today, though. Michelle, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I am wearing my Death by Mimosa, still drunk from yesterday crop top, which is very comfy. And it makes my boobs look big. So here for that.
Always a
Uh,
plus.
I've uh, I've lived a life today. I was late, but made it to Austin Pets Alive and watched some doggos for the first time in a few weeks. And I like this is probably kind of cheesy, but as I was driving away, I just had this just this feeling of joy. Like I forget how good it feels to go and just spend a little time with the doggos and hang out with them. And so as I was driving, I was very stressed because I have a very packed day, but I had this moment where I just felt really happy. Yeah. And
Love that. Joy is such a great feeling. I forgot what that felt like for a very long time myself.
I know, right? I was like, well, do you ever not trust it?
Oh yeah, yeah, totally.
That was the other thing. I was like, man, my creativity is back. That was joy. I'm like, something is going to fucking crash and burn in the next 24 hours.
Well, no, something already did because you said you were late to Austin Pets Alive. So it already crashed and burned. So now we can just be joyful, I think.
Beautiful. I love it. How are you doing
Just
today?
enjoy it. Enjoy it. Um, I'm doing a lot better today than I have in the past few weeks. So I wouldn't say I'm feeling joyful, but I'm feeling optimistic, and that's a good feeling. I like to think typically I do feel optimistic. So it's nice to feel like myself again. And I'm excited to be back here recording with you, Michelle.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I feel like you and I both have been, as anybody who listened to the episode 2 episodes ago, where we literally just bullshitted for 30 to 45 minutes about how our mental health is, taxing. I'm excited. I feel like you and I are both back on our game when it comes to productivity and creativity. So I'm feeling really good about this weekend and the coming week.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And we are working on, well, we're supporting on a special project today, which we are not going to release any details yet.
Yeah,
But we might have some exciting things just to share with y'all. One of our friends is doing a really cool project, so we're excited to go check that out today.
yeah.
Yeah. What are we drinking? Also, I need to Venmo you. You've been supplying me with alcohol.
Yes.
Maybe that's why I'm feeling joyful. We're not recording this episode completely sober.
That might be it. That might be it. So I was trolling GoPuff today because this is our second episode that we're recording today. Listen to last week's with Kristen. We're talking about weddings and events. We drank bubbles for that. So I was GoPuffing some La Marca. And instead of going to a local brewery, it was like, well, I'll just go puff some beer too. I initially sent you one, it was a double IPA. I can't remember what it was called, but it was in a pretty purple can. And I was like, what about this? And then I opened the app back up and it refreshed. And I saw this, it was a variety pack by Hop Valley Brewing Co., which is something I've never heard of, but it is literally 4 different types of IPAs. And so I was like, well, I guess we have to do a beer tasting.
Yes. And for those of y'all who don't know, and Marie didn't know this when she purchased it, Hop Valley is actually based in Eugene, Oregon, which is a couple hours outside of Portland. But for anyone who's new here, I'm from Portland. I was born and raised in Oregon. So I saw it and I was like, we got some West Coast beer. Woo, woo. And I'm not going to do the tasting personally. However, since we've been drinking bubbles, I'm going to go with their Bubble Stash IPA.
That's, I think what I'm going to switch to too once I finish my bubbles.
Bubbles all around. But yeah, excited to be here. Excited to I don't know, for my brain to be partially working again. Feels good.
I know, and Excited for like kind of a proper beer plug because ours have been like Starbucks and other weird things lately.
Crystal Light.
Crystal Light. For anybody who's wondering which Hop Valley beers as Michelle said, we have the Bubble Stash IPA, a Mango and Stash, which sounds really promising, Stash Panda, which is a hazy IPA, and then the Cryo Stash. Michelle, like, have you been to the brewery before? Have you ever tried any of these?
I've not been to Hop Valley. I haven't spent a lot of time in Eugene. It's where University of Oregon is based. So I went down maybe twice to party when my friends were there. But no, they do some really good stuff. And it's really cool to see that they have distribution out here because I don't think they're massive. So yeah, I'm stoked. And I don't know if this is supposed to be a brute IPA, but it definitely has like a little bit of a bubble to it, which I'm super stoked on. Also, I forgot.
That is a blend of fruity tropical flavors with a touch of resin to this new age IPA. You won't want to pass this one.
Love it. So
there you have it.
Is it too soon to talk about our topic for today?
It might be too soon. We might need to bullshit for a little bit longer. How soon is too soon, Michelle?
Well, that is a loaded question. And it just depends on what you're referring to. So
everything's a spectrum.
Everything is a spectrum. Yeah. So today we're just going to talk a little bit about our opinions, really. This has no scientific backing on how soon is too soon for various things.
We've done no research.
We've done
none.
No
polls.
No polls, no research. Some of these do tie into other episodes we've done in the past. So I think we should. What was the first one that started us wanting to talk about this?
I was gonna say, so you sent me a screenshot.
Yes. So I went on a date this week. Yay. It went well. I won't include any other details. There were some red flags there. I'm going to be honest.
But you didn't hate him.
I didn't hate him. Like, we had a good time. There were just some we'll call them yellow flags.
Fair.
But we had a great time. And then he sent me a picture the next day and was like, oh, I wanted to send you a dick pic. And it's a picture of a guitar pick labeled dick.
And my first question was, because I was like, that is kind of funny, but also context, right? So I was like, I mean, did you guys even kiss?
We didn't. We did not. I get the joke, but I'm like, I didn't laugh at it. And I laugh at pretty much anything. So I think that's another red flag. But yeah, so the question for that is like, how soon is too soon to make a sexual joke or even I would say like make comments that are like more sexual or referring to things like that? What is your opinion on that?
I mean, honestly, I get really, and I think I speak for a lot of women. I mean, I don't want to say that, but like really, like in conversations I've had with other girlfriends, like I think a lot of women get very turned off if a guy makes a sexual joke or like sexual comments too early on in the courtship, because apparently this is 1910. But like, honestly, I think in my opinion, I feel like a sexual joke lands better if you've done something physical with the other person. So like if I had hooked up with him and there was like some sexual like tension, even like I have friends, like I had a friend for a really long time here who like we'd never hooked up, but we'd always like kind of have a little bit of like a sexual banter because there was this like, we could both feel like this very extreme sexual tension. We'd known each other for a really long time. That being said, I feel like when you're still messaging on an app, when you've been on one date, like when you haven't physically done anything, to me, I feel like it's kind of a red flag.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's two sides to it. One is just like, read the room, right? Like, well, like, are my texts flirty? If you try to make a joke like that, am I responding with that same tone? Am I deflecting? Am I moving the conversation on? Like, I'm not a big, like, I'm very, very cognizant when I'm messaging on apps, even from the start, to try to make sure that I'm not using language that insinuates that I want to have this like sexting or whatever before we even met. Like, that's something that's like always top of mind for me. And yeah, I agree. Like, if it's too early, like, that was like whatever, but that person also made some other comments when we were out that I literally just like ignored. And so that is something where I think you need to, if you make a joke, because that's just your sense of humor, and the person doesn't like laugh or reciprocate or like moves on, don't continue to make those jokes. They probably don't want to hear them. or like you said, if it's too soon, it is a turn off to me, because it's like, hey, like, we're getting to know each other. If that's your sense of humor, sure. But that also to me is like, are you saying these things because you're just trying to hook up?
Right. I think a lot of women view it like that. I know I do, because I feel like the conversations I've had with guys where they are making those jokes sooner, those are the same guys that are just in it to be fuckboys, versus ones that actually are like serious.
Which I think is, I was going to say, I think it's a good transition to how soon is too soon to hook up.
See, I'm not so good at that one.
What comes first, the hookup or the sexual joke?
Hookup. I mean, like, for me, and I think, and this is something that I feel like I'm a Scorpio, whatever. Like, so it's something that I've always struggled with, because I feel like there's a lot of like slut shaming and like things like that. And I am much sooner, like, if I feel the chemistry with somebody, then I'm just kind of going to go with it and see where it takes me. And sometimes that bites me in the ass. Sometimes, like, I slept with Luke on the first date and now we've been together. So, like, you know, and who knows what the future of that is, but like, it's still, I think personally, just go with your gut.
Yeah.
But I'm special, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, no. So I feel like there are all these, like, people have these rules that are just like fabricated. Like, oh, if you sleep with someone on the first date, then there's no chance you'll have a relationship, or there's this or there's that. And like, people have these kind of like things in their
I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true either. I think the biggest thing is like you said, if there's chemistry, if you're really feeling it, it's more so like, are you like, how to explain it? Like,
you feel comfortable. Well, like, I'm like, if you feel comfortable with that person, then like,
it's almost like, are you consenting to your own decisions? Like, you to you, right? That's kind of where my head goes with it. Like, if you're like, yeah, I want to do this, or like, yeah, I'm really feeling this or whatever. At the end of the day, if someone, like, girl, guy, whatever, if someone who was interested in you and was interested in dating you isn't because y'all had chemistry and something happened, that's on them. That's their like antiquated idea of things. Whereas like, okay, you could wait 3 or 4 dates and then realize that you thought you had chemistry and then realize you don't have physical chemistry either.
And then there's a lot of buildup for nothing.
So yeah, I think this is something that is like extremely personal for people. And I don't believe that you, unless you really want to, like, need to have these specific hard and fast rules on a timeline. Sexuality is a spectrum, babies.
It totally is. Like, I could rant about this for days, just because I feel like you, like, and when I said like earlier, like, oh, like, I'm special, like, no, I think just the way that I view like sexuality is a little bit different than people who go into dating with these set rules of like, no, I don't hook up until the third date. Well, what if you get to the third date and you're not actually feeling comfortable with that person enough to take your clothes off? So I think, there's just different sides. And I don't think when it comes to like your sexuality that you can give it a set number of rules. And I also don't think you're screwing anything up if you have sex earlier on.
Yeah.
I think if anything, I think if you hook up with a guy and he dumps you because you hooked up in the first date, he was probably going to dump you anyways, even if you waited 3 to 5 dates. Like he would have, and then you would have been more invested at that point. So
listen to our episode on how to spot a fuckboy.
Yes, 100%. I want to throw this one out there just because speaking of rules, I remember being younger and having a lot of rules around texting. So how soon is too soon to like text back? If somebody gives you their number, you're out at a bar or whatever, and they're like, hey, here's my number, like, let's hang out. How soon is too soon to text them?
Less than immediately. Like I don't play games around communication. I think it's something that like back in like high school, coming out of high school, I'd be like, oh, well, if you text back too soon, then you seem desperate or this or that. And it's like, if I have my phone in front of me and I can text you back, I'm going to text you back immediately. But also it might be 24 hours before I text you back because I'm going to read your text and then I'm going to go on to the 80 other things I have to do. And then I'm going to come back to it and like continue our conversation. So yeah, I don't, when it comes to that type of stuff, I don't have like hard and fast rules. And I do think it's just kind of like, yeah, I think it's kind of a game that people play when they're like younger, or maybe like less mature from a dating standpoint. Just lost the cork. It's fine. Less mature, just throwing things around. Less mature from a dating standpoint, but also like if a girl or a guy, or if a person is going to get less interested because you responded sooner, that's fucking weird. That's on them, and they're probably a fuck boy with an eye.
And again, how interested were they to begin with? They probably weren't.
Right.
Yeah. How soon is too soon to, let's say, share a drink together? You threw that one out there.
Well, I mean,
I wanted to throw out like a plate too, because I like the idea of that. Like sharing spaghetti, like in Lady and the Tramp.
No.
The PDA episode comes back and you're like, Marie.
I'm fucking triggered right now. So I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty easy when it comes to this. Like, especially if we're at like a cocktail bar, if someone, like when we say share, let's just say like try part of, or like split, like try your drink or split a meal.
This is really good. You want to try some?
Yes. Like if we go to a bar and you order one cocktail for us to share, you are not my match. No, this didn't happen. No, but can you imagine?
Oh my God.
I have been out with people where they're couples and they're like, oh yeah, we're just splitting this beer. I'm like, but I don't understand.
I drink at a really slow pace. So I'm like, he would probably drink 3/4 of it and I would drink like a quarter because I just drink slowly.
Yeah. So for me, like if it's like, especially if it's a cocktail bar or somewhere where we're getting like delicious drinks, or even like a brewery, right? Where it's like, oh, Nomadic just put this fucking bomb ass IPA on top and they got a lager or something.
You're not drinking a Lone Star, basically.
Right. Yeah. I'm honestly like, sure, you could try it. It's not the end of the world. A meal too, I will admit, I'm someone who will like pick off some, like, I'll just like stab my fork into someone's plate and like steal a fry or something. Like I'm that person. I think a first date, it would be a little weird to share like something plated on the same plate.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think like here, have a sip is a little bit different than like, oh, let's share the lasagna.
Are you craving Italian food?
Yeah, I was talking to my mom this morning and she was like, oh, have you been using the pasta maker? Because I told her I made ratatouille the other night. I was like, Mom, ratatouille isn't pasta. I digress, but yes, I'm craving pasta. Plus, I think pasta is also a very stereotypical shareable dish. It's hearty, it has a lot of calories.
Yeah.
And then there's the lady in the tramp factor. But to make a long story short, I don't typically think twice about sharing a sip with somebody if I've already like if we're already like kissing, like we're dating or something, like I don't think twice about like your germs. That said, I am kind of a germaphobe. So especially right now with COVID things, I'm not as apt to like share my food or my drinks unless it's like, all right, I haven't bit into this yet. Here, you take your brand new clean fork, take what you want, and then that's that. But I'm very OCD anyways. So that plays into it for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Speaking of someone that you're seeing, we have one on here. So how soon is too soon to kiss for the first time?
Ooh, scandalous.
Ooh. So my response to this would be like, before we've had a conversation. Like, can you imagine showing up to meet your hinge date and they just like try to kiss you immediately?
I mean, we're not in Europe. Like,
yeah.
if you were literally like fresh off about Italian, just to keep with this theme, like Italian, French, like they're very affectionate. That I would be like, ooh, but then I'd be like, oh, it makes sense because of where you're from. But like an American to an American, like no, like
yeah, not here for that. But like, I mean, I don't know. I kiss on the first date.
I will too.
Fucking judge me. I don't give a shit. Judge me. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, again, it goes back to like if you're feeling the chemistry with somebody, what's the point in waiting? Like,
yeah,
why don't you just kind of see what's there?
Yeah, but we're very open here, so you know,
safe space.
I don't know if a public podcast is a safe space.
It is for you and I, so
we don't give a shit.
Exactly.
Just make sure you email us your hate mail instead of Instagram next time.
Yeah, exactly. Send all hate mail to @swipeinthecity@gmail.com.
Okay, this is kind of going in a different direction, but I love it because it's the perfect follow-up from last week's episode. How soon is too soon to attend an event together? And so this can be like a wedding as a +1, which if you don't know +1 etiquette, please go listen to our episode with Kristen from Besher Events. I learned something new. I made some mistakes. Y'all can learn from my mistakes so you don't make your own. Or like eventually like work Christmas parties are going to come back and like work events where you're allowed to bring someone. So at what point are you comfortable taking someone to a wedding? Let's put pandemic aside for a second. At what point are you comfortable taking someone to a wedding or like a work event?
We'd have to be in an exclusive relationship. So I would have to know that like I'm introducing this person as my boyfriend. And B, we'd probably have to like, it wouldn't be like a new thing. Like we would have to be together, I think, for a while before I felt comfortable doing that, because it's almost like, and not to jump into some of our other ideas here, but like meeting family, I'm like, my mom is going to ask about you for ever. And I'm like, I don't want to be in a meeting with my boss and have him be like, oh, how's, your boyfriend that I met at the party last week? And I'm like, oh, we broke up. Like, I think, especially when it comes to something more professional, like keeping a little bit of a line and having a few more standards other than like jumping into bed on the first date. In other words, I like you if I bring you to an office party.
Well, fuck you on the first date, but you are not coming to my Christmas party until we've been exclusive for a year.
Yes,
That's it.
that.
That's it. And no, I'm pretty aligned with that. I like that you mentioned if exclusive and monogamous is your dating style, we should clarify it. Like, I like that you mentioned that because that's a really good point. It's also, this will kind of tie us into the next one, but when like meeting the family, you mentioned if you take them to a work party and they disappear, you don't want everyone asking you for a week or 2 weeks or into eternity. My mom was just here visiting and she was like, how is Alligator Boots guy? And I was like, Mom, you met him for 2 hours, which was a poor decision on my part. You met him for 2 hours and he ghosted me. And that was over a year ago. So a year later, but Daniela Hannah 68, we haven't been shouting her out as much lately. Bless her heart. She just wants me to find love.
She does.
So she wants me to find love. She wants me to find someone who loves me as much as she does, which is literally impossible.
Literally impossible.
But we love you. We love you, Mom. We're glad we got to see you. But yeah, I think when it comes to like meeting the family, we do have an entire episode on this. If you go back into the vault,
the archives.
But I think it kind of ties in with work, although it also depends. Like, is your family local? Are they not? So like my brother and his girlfriend are moving here. I would probably introduce someone to my brother if we're just all casually grabbing drinks after like 2 dates, if it's a hangout type situation. But like, I'm probably going to be engaged before anyone like meets my dad again. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, it's really, it's kind of, it's a spectrum depending on like how close you are to your family, how often you see them. Are they local? Is it traveling? But I think for a travel component, there has to be at least like some level of like commitment there. I feel like this is something you've been thinking about lately.
Yeah, it might be. Stay tuned for future updates on that. But no, I mean, it is because I'm like, I don't know that it's necessarily like too soon, but I do travel to see my parents. And, you know, my mom, every time we talk on the phone, asks about how my boyfriend is, which is honestly one of the reasons why I don't usually talk about somebody that I'm dating with my mom until it's something that I feel like is notable, to be honest with you. Cause I'm like, if I told her about every single date that I've ever been on before I go on it, like she's going to be asking me about, you know, Joe from Hinge 2 years down the road. So I'm like, I don't have the capacity for that. And I want to, you know, save a little bit of space, but it might be something. I don't know. I'm still playing around with it. So we'll see.
To be continued.
TBD.
That kind of goes in with meeting friends, but I don't know.
Friends is a little different though.
So with friends, I think there's something to consider. There's like an intentional meeting, and then there is like we're hanging out.
Casual.
Right? If it's like, hey, we're down at the pool, bring your friend, come hang out. And it's like, that's different than being like, oh, we're setting up a specific time for you to meet my like best friend from back home or something like that. So
have you ever done that?
What?
Like I'm just thinking, I'm like, I don't think I've set intentional time for people to meet specific people. Like I've had points where I'm like, hey, like to my date, like, hey, come out with me and all my friends. Let's get brunch. I used to call that hazing when I was kind of a bitch.
A year ago?
Yeah, literally a year ago. Come meet all my friends. No, but seriously, like, it would be like a casual, like, oh, let's go get brunch. But like, I don't think I was never like, okay, you are going to meet my friend Michelle. She is my podcast co-host, my neighbor, blah, blah, blah. And let me set all of this, like these expectations, and the three of us are going to get dinner or whatever. Like, I've never done that.
So I feel like I did do that with my like ex that I was in a long-term relationship with, in the sense of introducing him to Heather and Carissa and their boyfriends. I think it was like a very set intentional thing, and it was kind of like later down the road. But now, like, here's the deal. If you aren't comfortable meeting friends or people that I know the first time we hang out, you probably shouldn't hang out with me, because I know people everywhere, because I'm a psychopath that has to make friends with fucking everyone. So, like, I was actually shocked on my date the other night that I didn't see anyone that I knew on E6.
That's weird.
Well, and then I've had dates get mad. Well, one in particular, good morning guy, who has since been
RIP.
But like, he got mad because you should see Blue right now. He's really mad at me. We ran into some guys that I knew, some guy friends of ours from the building that we live in, at the bar.
Well, you were across the street.
Right. And I'm not going to just like ignore people if I'm on like a proper dinner date, I'm not going to get up and start talking to other people, right? But if we're just drinking a fucking Lone Star at a picnic table, I'm going to be like, yeah, what's up, guys? Like, good to see you. This is so-and-so. But yeah, so for me, I'm like, you have to be open to meeting people or running into people, because that's just like, I'm an extreme extrovert. It's going to happen.
That's just your lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. A lot of you have been asking. Baby, come here.
So I think what we're saying is there's a spectrum to meeting friends as well, per usual. Hello, Blue. What about, so let's kind of backtrack a little bit. What about dating after a breakup? Like, how soon is too soon to start getting back on the market, for lack of a better way to put it?
So this depends on how serious the relationship was. But from my own experience, coming out of pretty much a 6-year relationship, lived together, adopted Blue together, all this other stuff, like semi-ran a business together, I started dating, like I got on the apps and started dating within probably like a month. I wasn't emotionally available and actually like able to show up emotionally for dates, to be honest, for like over a year. And so if you are self-aware and you can manage your own expectations and how you communicate with others, and setting expectations with others of like, hey, I'm down to grab drinks, but just so you know, like, this is where I'm at. If you can do that, then I would say you should still probably give it like a couple of months, like just take some time. Even if you feel like you're fine, even if you're the one that ended it, take some time, because a lot of what happens too is I think that people will just like roll right into that next relationship and not take the time to like grieve or like feel sad or angry or be like, oh wait, I actually am doing this, like I have this really toxic pattern of behavior that I'm exuding, that I'm doing.
Yeah,
like people I think don't take the time to look at that. So I think if it's a serious long-term relationship, you've got to take some time, and also just be really self-aware. And ideally you're working on this with your therapist as well, if you have one. I should have gotten one at that time and I didn't. So sorry to the hearts that I broke in the midst of that.
No, I totally agree with you. I think it depends on a lot of, what that particular relationship entailed. But I think at the end of the day, like if you at least are aware, like all right, you've been broken up with for a week. Your boyfriend broke up with you. You're kind of heartbroken. Maybe you want rebound sex. Like, that's not healthy, but like, it's something that people do. And I feel like that's gonna help. I mean, if that's something you need, as long as you're honest with the other person about it, and you're like, hey, I just got out of a relationship. I'm not looking for anything, but like, let's just do this. Then that's fine. I say you do you, or whoever.
Yeah, I think it is. It's just being aware, like being self-aware and being transparent with people and being self-aware enough to communicate that, because I think a lot of people do get hurt when someone is coming out of a breakup. They're, as people used to say, on the rebound, and they're not communicating that. But like tying kind of back into that, I mentioned we adopted Blue together. So how soon is too soon to get a pet together?
So when I got Luna, I was also in a relationship. However, that was 100% like me backed financially. So she was my dog. I was just living with my boyfriend at the time. We'd been together for 3 years. And not to get into the weeds of like why I shouldn't have moved in with him to begin with. But like adopting Luna was something I did for myself. I didn't necessarily do it because of him. But I would still, I mean, that other person gets attached to the animal too, especially if you're living together. So I feel like that's something to be really cognizant of. Like everybody was like, oh, like you guys broke up, like who gets custody of Luna? And I'm like, me. But if you're like a year or two into the relationship, or like even I feel like a lot of couples moved in really quickly over the pandemic, moved in together really quickly, adopted an animal together really quickly. It seems a little rushed. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just like a benchmark that I have in my head, but, and this kind of ties into some of these other ones. We can bulk it, combine it. I don't know. To me, I feel like a full year lets you see at least 80% of the different sides of someone. So, you know, whether they are love the holidays or hate the holidays, or, you know, they travel a lot or this or that. Like, I think after a year, you at least have a pretty good idea. I think like in past relationships, it's gone into like 2 or 3 where like some other stuff kind of comes out. But I feel like a full year is, for me, kind of the minimum for like living together, for like adopting an animal together.
Knock some of the others off the list.
To like get, like, I know people who've gotten engaged after dating for less than a year, and that makes me,
that gives me
want to throw up. but everybody's different, right? Again, this is not based in research. This is quite literally just our opinions as semi-traumatized people. and Scorpios.
Well, I will say I have legitimately read research from like behavioral psychologists that have said, you know, they've done different studies along the lines of when it comes to dating and like being in a new relationship or even a friendship with somebody, you know, it takes at least 6 months before you can really start to see the different facets of that person, because they're like, nobody's one dimensional. So I think allowing yourself more time when going into some of these like bigger milestones, like adopting an animal, because now we're talking about another life that you're raising, or like moving in together. I feel like those are things that you kind of really need to think about a little bit more strategically.
So here's the other thing. If in theory, you're thinking you're going to spend, you know, people used to say a lifetime, but let's just say like you're going to be with someone long term. Like, what is the rush if you can wait another 6 months. Like with moving together,
Yes.
I think what happens a lot of times is that people are like, well, my lease is ending. And it's like, yeah, but that's not like a great reason unless you were already wanting to move in together and talking about that and all these other things, right?
Yep,
Or
totally.
yeah, or like, oh, financially it'd be cheaper. It's like that is a horrible reason to live together, because then you're putting yourself
but
in
not
a
a
bad
good reason.
you're like putting yourself in a bad financial position should things not work out, because you're not going to be able to afford to move out of your possibly now toxic situation. So I think those are all challenging.
Yeah, and I think like, you know, in terms of like moving in with somebody, and I think one of the other ones you said, get a joint bank account.
I mean, a joint bank account to me is like marriage status.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think I would ever get a joint bank account unless I was actually legally married to that person. And even then, I'm going to be honest with you, like my money is my money.
So
Like,
yeah.
oh, that's such a single girl thing to say, but
So what I've seen is that it's like you each have personals and then you have a joint one, and that's where
right.
like everything for bills comes out of. So for example, like my brother and his girlfriend are moving here. They're creating a joint account because she's going to be managing paying bills on time and all that kind of stuff. My brother's going to put money
He's
into
the
that account.
one.
So it makes sense for their situation. But they'll still have their own separate accounts. It's just like that makes it so much easier for paying like rent, utilities, bills, whatever. You just each put your portion in, and then you just automate all that shit.
Well, the other thing, not to like totally counter that, but I will say it's also really easy to transfer money on a regular basis. Like if you were to live with somebody, and you have to pay them for like rent and utilities, your half of whatever that is. I mean, everybody's on Venmo. If you're not on Venmo for some reason, you're on Cash App because you're a drug dealer.
I was just thinking
that. or if you're like, I have Chase. Chase has Zelle Quick Pay. And so if you're both Chase users, then you just quick pay each other. So like, there are literally like, you don't even need to go to the fucking ATM and pull cash out. It's not that hard right now to like pay your half of the rent. I don't think you necessarily need to have a joint bank account, which is kind of where I'm coming from in terms of like it's mine.
Yeah, no, I definitely see both sides for it. I think to quote J&J, our favorite, our BFFs, I think we solved dating today, Jordana. I mean, Marie.
How are you?
This was I think a good quick hits one. I know we have some other ideas for this, so I think there's a potential for a future episode, and maybe we throw like a poll out there or get some feedback on this. Any final thoughts on how soon is too soon?
I think if you're asking yourself if it's too soon, it might be.
Mic drop.
Or you're me and you overanalyze every single thing.
Okay, well, you just took away our mic drop moment.
Michelle, where can people find us?
Swipe N the City across platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, email swipennthecity@gmail.com, and SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
And don't forget to also check in with Death by Mimosa. They are creating some really awesome, fun t-shirts. Michelle is wearing Still Drunk from yesterday, and use code swipe right for 10% off.
10% off. You got 10%
it. Off. Do it. We're sponsored, y'all.
Cheers.
Cheers.